Paris, 1924. The hall of the prieur was in complete silence. 40 students waited. Gurdjieff stood still for nearly an hour, scanning each face with piercing eyes. Then he finally spoke. "Tell me, did you come here to grow, or merely to survive more comfortably?" Silence deepened. "You think you are living, but most of you are merely existing. You breathe, eat, sleep, work, reproduce. But that is not life. That is biological survival disguised as human existence." I spent 30 years traveling the world, and I discovered a terrifying truth. 99% of people die without ever having truly lived. A woman in the front row began to cry. You cry because you recognize the truth. You've spent the last 20 years surviving, not living. "But today," Gurdjieff continued, "I will show you the most important discovery of my life, how to tell the difference between survival and real growth. And more importantly, how to turn each moment into an opportunity for conscious evolution." Gurdjieff's obsession began early. At 23, he visited a childhood acquaintance, a once brilliant carpenter. What he saw shocked him. It was like staring at the ghost of who that man could have been. He still breathed, talked, worked. But his eyes were empty. The man had stopped growing at 25. His body had aged, but his mind, spirit, and emotions had frozen in time. He repeated the same ideas, held the same biases, told the same stories. It was as if his soul had died, and his body forgot to stop functioning. Disturbed, Gurdjieff began observing others. The pattern repeated. Most adults had ceased growing, yet lived on for decades, unaware they had become biological machines. He began asking people a single question. When was the last time you learned something that truly changed the way you see the world? The answers were shocking. Most couldn't name a single transformative experience in 5, 10, or even 20 years. Yes, they had gained skills, knowledge, but not real growth. Not the kind that expands consciousness and transforms who you are. "That's when I understood," he said. "There is a vast difference between people who are growing and people who are simply surviving. And the tragedy is, most don't even know which one they are." So began his obsessive quest, not just to understand why this happens, but how to reverse it. The answer came in the Syrian desert in 1896. After weeks of travel, Gurdjieff arrived at a remote tekka guided by whispers of a Sufi dervish who held secrets of human transformation. The dervish looked ordinary, but his eyes were alive with presence. "You want to know the difference between those who grow and those who merely survive?" he asked. Gurdjieff nodded. The master picked up 2 identical seeds. One he planted in rich soil. The other he placed on a stone. "These seeds are the same. One will be forced to grow. The other will merely survive." Over the next days, Gurdjieff watched. The planted seed sprouted, reaching for the light, forming roots. The seed on the stone remained intact, unchanged. The one on the stone is surviving, preserving its form. But the one in the soil is growing, transforming into something entirely new. Then the master looked into Gurdjieff's soul and asked, "Tell me, young one, are you the seed on the stone, or the seed in the soil?" The question pierced him. Despite all his seeking, he realized, in many ways, he was the seed on the stone. Preserving ideas, reactions, patterns, not transforming them. "Most humans," said the dervish, "unconsciously choose to be the stone seed. They want growth, but only if it doesn't threaten who they think they are. Real growth is not additive, it's transformative. It demands that you become something fundamentally different." "Then how," Gurdjieff asked, "can one become the seed in the soil?" The master smiled. "That is the right question. But the answer will shake everything your culture has taught you about comfort and safety. Real growth requires 3 things most people avoid: conscious discomfort, voluntary effort, and psychological death." At first, Gurdjieff resisted. Wasn't the goal of life peace and ease? "Look at nature," the master said. "The seed must break. The caterpillar dissolves. Muscle must be strained to grow." Then began Gurdjieff's inner trials. On day 1, absolute silence for 18 hours. He faced the chaos of his own mind, looping fears, fantasies, automatic noise. On day 2, He had to argue for ideas he opposed. He realized his convictions were just mental habits, never questioned. On day 3, he acted against emotional impulses, staying kind when he wanted to lash out. He saw that his personality was a prison of reactions. Each day, another layer of his automaton self was exposed. By day 4, something changed. He felt space between his thoughts and his awareness. A deeper part of him observed the machine. That was the breakthrough. Survivors, said the dervish, are ruled by their programming. Those who grow learn to observe and rewire it. But the most radical insight came on day 6. Real growth never happens through comfort. It happens through challenges that stretch you beyond who you are now. Those who chase comfort and validation are choosing stagnation. They may gain things, but they remain the same inside. They're just decorating their psychological prison. Gurdjieff felt a chill. He realized he'd avoided transformation by surrounding himself with ideas that made him feel wise, rather than questioning his core assumptions. The tragedy, said the dervish, is that people confuse comfort expansion with consciousness expansion. They think they're growing, but they're just becoming more polished versions of their old selves. Returning to the prier, Gurdjieff began testing these insights with students. He created 3 diagnostic questions. Is this activity forcing me beyond my comfort zone, or reinforcing what I already know? Am I learning something about myself that I didn't know, or just confirming what I believe? Am I becoming a more expanded version of who I was, or transforming into someone fundamentally different? Gurdjieff was startled by how many of his own pursuits were merely survival in disguise. I spent years studying esoteric philosophy, not to transform, but to feel superior. Self-deception, he realized, is the greatest enemy of true growth. At the prier, he created experiments. 2 groups. One given tasks that matched their strengths. The other given challenges that demanded entirely new capacities. Group 1 thrived, felt confident, but they didn't change. Group 2 struggled, felt lost, wanted to quit. But those who endured changed deeply, not just in skill, but in presence, patience, and self-awareness. Comfort is the enemy of growth, not because we must suffer, but because growth requires stretching beyond what we are. One woman arrived seeking spiritual elevation. Educated, wealthy. Gurdjieff assigned her to wash dishes in the kitchen. I didn't come here to be a servant, she cried. No, he said. You came to be a student. But you only want lessons that make you feel special. For weeks, she resisted. But slowly, something shifted. She realized her pride was masking insecurity. Her need to feel superior was preventing transformation. When she finally gave herself to the work, with presence, she discovered humility, service, and grounded strength. 6 months later, she was not the same woman. She was not just more skilled, she was more real. Before, said Gurdjieff, she sought confirmation of who she was. Now, she allows experiences to transform her into who she could be. Late in life, Gurdjieff had one final realization. Humans are the only creatures who can choose between evolution and stagnation. A dog becomes fully a dog. A tree fully a tree. But a human can stop growing at 25 and repeat old patterns for 50 more years. Growth isn't optional. It's our evolutionary responsibility. If you choose only to survive, you are wasting the rarest gift of all, the power of conscious transformation. He devised a simple test, the last week test. Think of your last 7 days. Did you do anything that expanded your capacity? Did you confront any inner limitation? Did you choose discomfort for the sake of growth? If not, you were in survival mode, no matter how busy or productive you seemed. But here's the good news. You can shift modes anytime. Growth doesn't need grand gestures. It starts with small, conscious choices. Every day, he said, do one small thing your personality resists, something uncomfortable but beneficial. A hard conversation. Practicing a difficult skill. Observing an emotional reaction without acting on it. The goal isn't suffering. It's building psychological muscle, the will to choose growth over safety. You weren't given this life just to survive until death. You were given this life to become everything you're capable of being. Every choice must be guided by one question. Is this taking me closer to who I can become, or keeping me who I already am? There is no neutral ground. If you're not growing, you're stagnating. If you're not expanding, you're contracting. If you're not evolving, you're wasting the most precious gift existence offers, the chance to become something more. So I ask again, are you using this life to grow, or just to survive?